the topic is going to fall along the lines of signs of a major alchemical change that is starting to take place in regards to your evolutionary experience. Okay, so what I'm really going to be talking about within this video is certain types of symptoms and certain types of signs that you can realize within yourself in regards to your alchemical changes as your energy field and your physical body are completely changing when you start really evolving in regards to your soul's evolution. Okay, so if you want to know some of these general signs and symptoms that a major alchemical shift is taking place inside of yourself, then this is definitely the video for you. So I'll see you on the other side. Okay, so let's start here. So when you're going through energetic changes, this is what's known as alchemy. Okay, and the reason why it's known as alchemy is because you're basically utilizing different types of energies, whether that's planetary energies, whether that's archetypal energies, whether that's energies that are coming from different entities, things in that nature, or if it's the elements, okay? The elements in regards to earth, fire, water, and air. In alchemy, as I was just saying, is when you're using all of these different types of energies and you're essentially embracing them first and foremost. You have to embrace them to go through the alchemy, which basically means you have to be open to them. You have to be receptive to them. And then as you're open and you're receptive to these different types of energies, you're able to start processing them. Okay, so it first starts with you being open and receptive. Once again, receptive is to pull in, to receive, allowing yourself to be open to it, not shutting it off, not using your mental to block off the energies. So you're open, you're receptive, and then through receiving, you essentially use the more so feminine aspect of your energetic being to start feeling what it is that you're receiving, okay? Because by feeling these different types of energies, literally by feeling, there doesn't have to be any logic, doesn't have to be any analytical awareness, doesn't have to be any intellect, honestly. Just feeling, okay? It's intuitive. It's also a little bit instinctual, okay? It's primal to feel, okay? And once again, as I was saying, by feeling, you're starting to process those different types of energies, those different aspects of energies, whatever they are, elemental, entity, planetary, archetypal, you name it. And as you start this process of doing exactly that, processing the energies, this is what's known as alchemy. So these different aspects of energy are starting to filtrate into your physical body, literally changing you on a microbial level, changing you on a physical level, which basically means if you understand the, let's say, for example, if you understand the human gut and you understand how many different bacteria reside within your guts and just reside within your body in general, I mean, the cells within your bloodstream, if you understand the depth of what's really going on inside of your physical body right now, then it will give you a much stronger awareness of what alchemy represents when it falls along the lines of changing you on that physical level, which means that the microbes in your body, the bacteria in your body, the cells in your body, literally start to change. They start to move in different directions. They start to essentially genetically evolve. Okay, this is what real alchemy is. And obviously this isn't a process where you do some sort of spiritual evolutionary work, or you go through some sort of experience, and then the next day you're completely changed as a person. You have a whole new genetic makeup. I'm not saying that changes can't happen quick. People do have awareness shifts that take place very rapidly and can manifest quickly. But when it comes to real physical alchemy and real energetic alchemy, it is a slow but very sure process, meaning it slowly changes, it slowly shifts and alchemizes within your physical body and your energy field through the principle of as within, as without. And that change is a DNA, a genetic, and once again, an energetic permanent change as you are going through this alchemical processing. Okay, so it's a long, drawn-out process, but it changes you completely as a person. Okay, so that is the nature of what alchemy truly is. Okay, so now let's go into exactly what this video is made for. Okay, what are some of the signs and symptoms of when you're going through alchemical changes? Okay, what can you expect and what can you notice within yourself when you're going through some of these changes? So the first one that is a very common change, that is a very common shift that people will most of the times not be consciously aware of. A lot of the times when this shift starts to take place, or when this sign starts to take place, a lot of people don't know that it's attributed to an alchemical transformation within themselves. Okay, and I've even made a video on my Patreon that goes into very much depth in regards to this topic. Those of you that are watching that are Patreon members, you should know about it. Once again, if you want to join the Patreon, it's the first link in the YouTube description to gain access to that content. But the first sign has to do with fatigue. It has to do with tiredness. Okay? Now, right off the bat, just because you're tired or you're fatigued does not necessarily mean that every time you're tired and you're fatigued, that means you're going through a huge alchemical shift. Okay, so what I'm basically trying to say is there may be other reasons as to why you're fatigued or you're tired. For example, if you do not have a good sleep schedule, if you're someone who's abusing substances or you're on a bunch of medications, these things can tend to affect your energy levels. But let's say you're somebody who generally has a default moderate state of energy, moderate energetic states, where you've been able to become aware of how you function in your day-to-day life, and you're pretty accustomed to it. It's pretty normal to you. And then suddenly you start really embracing your spiritual soul's evolutionary development. You start looking into maybe the occult. You start practicing with the occult. You start looking into different spiritual teachings, different soul evolutionary knowledge, so to speak. And you start applying some of these practices, whether that's sitting in silence, whether that's doing any form of visualizations, whether that's doing rituals, whether that's doing invocations, you name it. The point is, if you're someone that understands generally your default energetic state, and then you start getting yourself into spiritual soul evolutionary practices, and then you notice all of a sudden you find yourself becoming a little bit more tired. You find yourself becoming a little bit more fatigued than what you're typically used to. And a lot of the times this will take place to individuals. And as I said, a lot of the times this is actually not conscious to them in regards to them being able to be aware that the reason why they're tired is because they're going through an alchemical physical body and energetic change. Okay, so a lot of the times people will embrace some sort of spiritual practices for the first time. And what they'll notice is they start to get a little bit fatigued. They start to get a little bit tired. And then based on their awareness of them being tired, they typically will think this is not good because it doesn't make me feel good. I don't like being tired, so I should stop doing these spiritual practices. I should stop pursuing this because obviously I'm not getting the immediate result that I want. Okay? And the reality is that this is just a misunderstanding of why you get tired and why you get fatigued when it comes to going through big alchemical changes. Because the reality is not much different, than when you're exercising your physical body. Think of it like this. For anyone that knows about exercise and anyone that knows about fitness, you know for a fact that if you were to go into the gym, and let's say, for example, you did a leg workout and you spent an hour in the gym doing only legs. And let's say you haven't been to the gym in a while. So you're returning to the gym, you go in for an hour, you do legs for that entire hour, you go hard. Okay, you're going like 80% to 90% of your maximum intensity. And you can almost guarantee that that next day you're going to be sore and you're going to need some form of rest. Okay? You're not going to be able to go back the second day and do the exact same intensity, okay? Because your body is going through a muscle change. It's going through, we could even say, an alchemical change, okay? Your muscles need to repair. They need to build back up. They need to reshape themselves based on the pressure you put on them, okay? So it's no different when we're talking about spiritual and soul evolution. Okay, when you're doing spiritual practices and you're starting to dabble with these practices with the intention of evolution, soul evolution, you could think of it like your mind is one of the epicenters for your entire body in regards to how you physically go through these alchemical changes that then manifest energetically. Okay, so your mind itself is a muscle. So naturally, when you start getting into some of these spiritual practices and then you notice you're fatigued and you're tired, that is your mind communicating to you, letting you know through the brain, through the muscle of the brain, I should say, that the brain is the muscle, not the mind, but the mind is communicating to the brain, which is the epicenter. The brain is the physical epicenter for the mind. And it's communicating to the brain to let you know that you need to rest, so to speak. You need to continue sitting in silence. Okay, let your body rebuild itself on that physical, energetic level, and just in regards to your energy field in general. Okay, so this is very common. And once again, a lot of people that experience this actually tend to get afraid. And they tend to think that something went wrong or they're doing something that's not beneficial, when in reality, it actually is very beneficial. Okay, so this is the first sign in regards to going through big alchemical changes. And this is going to lead right into the next sign, which is ego death. Okay, so very common when you're going through a big alchemical change, when you're going through a big alchemical shift, you are going to deal with ego death. Okay, so how does this manifest? What does this actually feel like? Okay, ego death, and the way that this alchemical sign can manifest if you're going through a big alchemical change is that it's very hard to latch on to your mental hardware, so to speak. So most individuals, most of you listening to this, have some sort of mentality. You have some sort of mental system in place. You have some sort of belief system. You have some sort of patterned beliefs, ideas, and thoughts that actually are like, you could think of it like a structure in your own mind. And this structure of mental patterns that you believe that are a part of your belief system gives you a sense of security in regards to your self-identity. It gives you security in recognizing who you are as an individual and also how you interact with the world around you and what your place is in regards to your environment. Okay, so this naturally gives a sense of security, which can give confidence or it can give a false sense of confidence. Okay, confidence can come from the fact that if it's based on your evolutionary growth, then that can be confidence. And if it's not in alignment with your evolutionary growth, then that could give you false confidence because you're believing something and you feel secure with a belief system that is not serving your evolution. Okay? So, very common, and this happens all the time, when people start getting into spiritual soul evolutionary practices, and sometimes even studies based on some of the principles you learn, some of the concepts, they really do challenge your ego. They challenge your sense of identity. They challenge who you think you are and how the world around you functions, how the universe functions. And that naturally causes disillusion and ego death. But once again, as I was saying, it is a very common sign and a very common symptom to be going through ego death when you're going through big alchemical changes. So what I'm saying is that when you're going through an ego death, when you're trying to make sense out of what is happening around you and what's happening inside of you, and you can't seem to grab onto that same mental hardware that you're so used to grabbing onto, you can't seem to get that same sense of security that you once used to have because now your beliefs are rearranging themselves. They're now reorchestrating themselves based on a whole new awareness and a whole new perspective. When you find yourself in that state trying to grab on to something that is no longer there, you feel like you're in a state of almost being lost. You feel like you're in a state of experiencing a little bit of the abyss, okay, which is chaos, primal chaos. And the truth of it is that you are, okay, and there's nothing wrong with it, and it's for sure not something that's evil. It is something that is very beneficial and very important to experience, but also to be consciously aware that when you're in that state of being, of not knowing what's happening, where you are, where you're headed, and what's going on, and why you can't grab on to your same sense of self-identity and your same mental security patterns and all those things, it's important to be aware that you're going through an ego death. You're going through a sense of self-importance death. You're going through a sense of self-identity death that will lead into a rebirth of something new. And whatever that something new is, it is going to be what's more beneficial for your evolutionary growth. Okay, so whenever you experience that state of disillusion and ego death, that is a common, very, very common sign that you're going through some very profound alchemical changes in regards to your physical body and your energy field. Okay, so if you're aware of that, then you can just allow yourself to totally be in that state of disillusion and stop trying to grab on to that mental pattern that you love so much and that you're attached to. Stop trying to grab on to those beliefs and those ideas and even habits. It could even be physical habits. Let them go and allow yourself to be in that state of nothingness, the state of the abyss, so to speak. Let your identity dissolve and then allow yourself to be receptive to what comes next, to what is essentially reborn in your awareness, what comes out of that state of dissolution, because there will be a new hardware, so to speak. There will be a new belief system, a new state of consciousness. And this process happens on and off, ego death, rebirth, ego death, rebirth, ego death, rebirth, on and off, until you finally become aware of the primal nature of your energetic being, which is that you are a soul, and your soul is ultimately connected to the source, and therefore you start to identify yourself as your soul, okay, as your astral body, which is the everything, okay, it's the everything and simultaneously the nothing. So you consciously stop allowing yourself to always ignorantly attach to beliefs and mindsets and hold on to them for that same sense of security. Rather, you exist in a state of formlessness. Okay, you allow yourself to attach to ideas and beliefs when they serve you, and then when it's time to go, your intuition lets you know, and you let go of them. You don't hold on to them, you let go of them. And then you're gaining power in this process. You're gaining the energetic benefits. The more you can attach to ideas, beliefs, mindsets, archetypes, and then let them go, then they process in you, and then a new one comes up, and you do it again and again and again. But see, most people have the problem where they're still just attaching to very mundane beliefs, very mundane ideas, very mundane perspectives, very mundane habits, and they cannot let them go. People refuse with their own free will to let them go because it's very uncomfortable. And that's the reason why people refuse to let go of a lot of these mundane, very low density ideas and perceptions. Okay, on top of the fact that the multiverse we live in today is programmed to have individuals unable to let go. But the reality is although we live in a multiverse that's programmed that way, you have the full potential to do it. And you have the potential to do it properly, and it's up to you. So are you going to embrace that level of uncomfortability, or are you going to hold on and attach to your mindsets, beliefs, and ideas, not let go, and stay stagnant and live a mediocre to very shitty rest of your physical life? Okay, and continue doing that over and over and over and over until you finally crack, until you finally allow yourself to realize, oh, you know what? I will let go of this. I will experience the uncomfortability that's behind dissolution. Okay, because trust me, when you're in a state of dissolution, it's not comfortable, but there's always something much more beneficial that's on the other side. Okay, so that is a very common sign of profound alchemical changes that is taking place within your physical body and energy field. Ego death. Okay, sense of self-identity death. Okay, now the third one is going to be physical, we could say physical pain, so to speak, or stiffness. Okay, oftentimes, and I'm sure you may have heard of this before in regards to people talking about Kundalini awakenings, which is basically a surge of sexual energy traveling through the body. Some individuals are prepared for it. Individuals that are already generally healthy, have healthier nutrition, take care of their physical bodies, were a little bit more open and receptive throughout their life. And then there's other individuals that were not taking care of these areas of their being. And then they start diving into energetic practices and studies, and they activate that same level or similar level of sexual energy, and their physical bodies and their hardware is not properly programmed to even handle that level of energy. So therefore, just like you can imagine, if you have a battery and if you have a circuit and there's too many volts of energy running through a circuit, it can blow the circuit out. Okay, it's the same concept. So there are individuals that activate or awaken, or we could even say manifest large amounts of sexual energy within their physical bodies, and their physical bodies are not prepared to handle that level of sexual energy. And sexual energy, for those of you that don't know, can equal power. You could think of sexual energy as power. Energy, like literally like energy that is the power to move, to function, to speak, to talk, to evolve, to have psychic capabilities. Okay, so once again, there are individuals that are not taking care of their physical bodies, are typically not open and receptive, and at some point in their life, they get drawn towards spiritual studies, occult studies, and then that leads to certain types of practices. And then that leads to sexual energy starting to essentially activate itself, starting to become manifest, starting to, we could say, wake up within the self. And if that individual doesn't have the proper body complex to be able to process that power, then there is going to be physical pain. There is going to be stiffness. Now, obviously, there is a scale with the different degrees and the levels of pain that you could experience and the different levels and degrees of stiffness that you could experience. And that just depends on the individual itself. So some individuals are, decently healthy, decently open and receptive already, and then that energy can flow much more naturally. And then there's other individuals that, are not the best when it comes to their nutrition, are not the best when it comes to their health, have some mental issues in regards to being receptive. And these individuals may experience a little bit of stiffness, a little bit of pain when they're going through big alchemical changes. And then on the other end, there's individuals that are very unhealthy. Okay, they're not open. They have a lot of mental issues, a lot of blockages in regards to their belief system, a lot of attachments. And if these individuals awaken or wake up sexual energy within their physical body and energy field, they can experience a lot of pain. They can experience a lot of stiffness. Okay, then we could even say, this gets dynamic. It's not like a one shoe fits all in this case. We could, it depends, because we're talking about power. We're talking about energetic power in the form of sexual energy. So you could have an individual that is very healthy, very open and receptive, but then triggers such a large amount of sexual energy through their physical body and energy field to start waking up in a short period of time, that just in general, that amount of sexual energy, that amount of power is too much even for a very healthy person to process. So there are levels to it. And once again, it's not one shoe fits all in this case. But the main point that I'm trying to make here is that is a common sign that you can expect and that you will experience if you're going through very big alchemical changes to your physical body and your energy field. You can feel stiffness oftentimes on your spine. Oftentimes it manifests somewhere in your back. You can feel it in your shoulders. You can feel it in a multitude of different areas, and it is going to be individualized for you as the individual listening to this, depending on your own energy field and your own physical body complex structure. Okay, it's going to be different for all different types of individuals, but very commonly it will manifest in the spine, because that's one of the main areas that sexual energy travels through the body, connected into the brain, okay, through the brain stem. So if you tie it all together with the three main signs and symptoms that I gave of a big alchemical shift that is taking place within yourself, if you tie them together, as I mentioned, between the fatigue, between the ego death, and between the physical pain, okay, obviously a wonderful way to allow yourself to go through these alchemical changes in a more so effortless way, rather than getting stuck on, why is this happening to me? I don't understand this. I need help. Oh, I should see a doctor, whatever the case is. Rather than jumping the gun or jumping the conclusion right away because you're feeling something uncomfortable, I would advise that you give yourself time to rest. Okay, allow yourself, instead of maybe going out on the weekend, okay, instead of hanging out with your group of friends, instead of sitting up playing video games, okay, instead of even, sitting reading a book, that takes mental energy. Whatever the case is, give yourself time to rest and give yourself time to process, because that is going to be beneficial for all of these 3 different signs and symptoms of going through a big alchemical change. So allowing yourself to rest, to literally sit in silence with no phone, no other people in the room, no distractions, preferably if you can turn the lights off, turn them off, and just sit there with yourself, like literally laying on your bed, gazing at the ceiling. This is going to be a wonderful state for yourself to be in, to start more so effortlessly processing this alchemical change that you might be experiencing. Okay, this will help you go through this will help you rest in regards to the fatigue that you can experience. Okay, this will help you go through the ego death and start to process your letting go and not grasping on to old beliefs, mindsets, and mental constructs. And this will help relax your body so that you're not getting these cramps or this stiffness or just this physical pain in general. All of these things can be reduced, so to speak, or processed and further embraced by sitting in silence and just allowing yourself to rest. And this sitting in silence that I'm talking about is a key for going through alchemical changes. And I'm telling you this from personal experience, I am somebody that's been through profound alchemical changes. And I'm going to say this straight up. I've been through alchemical changes that most of you listening to this right now, if you were to go through, you would lose your mind. You would literally probably check yourself into a mental hospital. Okay. You may even, there's a multitude of things that you might do if you were to experience some of the alchemical changes that I've been through. Now, basically the reason why I'm saying this is because I'm letting you know I've been through major alchemical changes. And obviously the reason why is because I know how to process them and handle them and turn them into my power ultimately. But the point that I'm trying to make is that I'm telling you as someone who's been through huge, huge alchemical changes where I didn't even have a choice. Okay, I had to sit in silence. It wasn't like, oh, I'm going to do this if I feel like it. I'm going to do this. I think this might be good. It was like, I am experiencing so much within my physical body and within my energy field. I don't know what to do. So I'm going to resort to what I know what works and what works best for me, which is just sitting in silence. Okay. And obviously that's not a fun state to be in where you feel like you're forced to sit in silence, but it helped me go through the alchemical change. And this wasn't just like a one-time thing. This was things that these are changes that I've been through where I've done this for months on end. Okay. There would be periods of my life where I would spend hours a day sitting in silence, day after day after day. Okay. I would obviously do things in my day. I would get up and do my routines and all that stuff and do what I do in regards to my YouTube channel. But there would be days where I would spend at least 2 to 3 to 4 hours sitting in silence consecutively. Okay. That's how profound some of the alchemical changes that I've been through. And once again, sitting in silence was the key to being able to process that level of alchemical change that I was going through. And I will tell you this as well. Not one time have I gone through an alchemical change that was very uncomfortable to embrace and very uncomfortable to go through that did not pay off in the end, that did not pay off on the other side of that alchemical change. So what I'm saying is that whenever I've personally been through these excruciatingly uncomfortable alchemical changes, it's always led to mind-blowing perspective, mind-blowing awareness, and increased power. Okay, so it's always been worth it. Okay, that's why I will literally sit for 3 to 4 hours in silence, because it pays off. It makes sense. It helps me further evolve. It increases my power, and it helps me build my empire. Okay, so this is where I'm going to leave it. Ladies and gentlemen, if you enjoyed this video, come down here and hit the thumbs up.